Today, I added DLC to chess, and this DLC adds 28 new pieces to the game, all of which you will be able to place wherever you want on a chessboard to modify the game a little bit. But for now, let's start with the first piece. The Archbishop. So the Archbishop combines movements of the bishop and the knight. It's worth 5 points. Let's mark the Archbishop as done. And the next couple of pieces will just combine other pieces. For example, if we combine a knight with a rook, we get a Chancellor, and there is also Amazon, which combines queen with a knight. Let's check those pieces of the list, and create a few more combined pieces. So the next piece will be a combination of knight and a pawn. I'm gonna call it horsey pawn, and let's say it'll be worth 4 points of material. This is how it looks. And that's how it moves. Okay, but all of those pieces have knight in it. Let's actually create something without the knight. Pawn rook would be a good piece for that. I think everyone knows how it moves, and what pieces it combines, and this is how it looks like. Great, but just combining pieces won't get us too far. And so the next few pieces will be the leapers, which are pieces that make one simple movement in every direction. The knight from normal chess is actually a leaper as well. It makes a 2x1 movement, so starting from this square it would go here, and here. Okay, now that you understand this concept, let's create the first leaper, the camel. This piece is actually very close to our horsey friend, as instead of going 2x1 squares, it goes in a 3x1 movement, meaning it just elongates the move. I drew it myself and I honestly think it looks quite cute. The following piece is the giraffe, which moves in a 3x2 pattern. It's worth, let's say, 4 points, and since it is quite unorthodox colors, you might wonder how the black version looks like, so here it is. And with that said, we finished creating the giraffe. We have only 2 more leapers in this DLC. After those, the pieces will get a lot more complex and fun. You'll see what I'm talking about. So the alfil is this next leaper, although I decided to name it elephant, because it literally just looks like one. Funnily enough, it's another animal piece, and it's not that powerful, as it moves only to this square. Great. Now get ready for the final leaper, the stag, which unlike the elephant is actually strong. Let me show you the movement of this thing. It's 4x2 squares, definitely pretty strong. And there are obviously many more leapers out there. There is 4 leaper, 3 leaper commuter zebra, and even a piece called Zero, which I guess just moves to where it was. But, we can't fit them all into this DLC, so we have to go on to the next type of pieces, the riders. The riders are a bit better than the leapers. They basically make a leaper's movement, but not only once, they continue doing this movement infinitely, or at least until they get blocked. The giraffe rider is a good example of it. You can see its icon is just 2 giraffes stacked on each other, and it's often like that with the riders. So the giraffe rider moves just like a normal giraffe, except that it continues that movement. I know this piece looks kinda scary, but you don't have to use it. After all, you decide which pieces you'll use in your board setup. We're going to create 3 more riders, and then we're gonna combine some riders with some leapers. So the first one of those 3 is the Dababa rider, which comes from a leaper we haven't talked about yet. Its name is Dababa, and I honestly couldn't even pronounce this name in the beginning. But anyways, it moves 2 squares in each direction, and it looks like a rook, but reversed. Great, Dababa rider done. And here is the next piece. You might wonder, why does it have a 2 above it? And the answer is that's because it makes the knight movement only twice, so it's like a rider with a limited reach. By the way, its name is Knight Rider 2, and in my opinion this piece is very useful. Not too powerful but still quite mobile. Would give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, but now we have to do the last of the 3 pieces, the elephant rider. The elephant rider is obviously repeating the movement of the elephant, as well as it just looks like 2 of them. And that's it. Let's mark those 3 pieces as done on our list, so that we can start combining leapers with riders, and trust me, from now on the pieces are not gonna be boring. You'll see what I mean after we make the Pope. So the Pope is a 3rd iteration of the bishop piece. First there was the bishop, then there was an archbishop, and now we got the Pope, which is the most powerful of those 3, as it literally moves like a bishop plus a knight rider. Also, it looks like this actually. It was our first piece to combine old pieces with the new riders, and the second one will only combine leapers with other leapers. I named it the square piece, as it actually moves in a perfect square. Now the square connects movements of the knight, Dababa and elephant, all of that to be able to make this beautiful square movement. Obviously it looks like a square as well, and to be honest, not a bad piece. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, good, but all those other pieces are still waiting to be done, especially the Dab elephant, which is next. First of all, I know it's a weird name, but well, it kind of makes sense as this piece moves like Dababa plus elephant. Here is its movement shown on the board. So yeah, it's worth probably around 2.5 points. Anyways, Dab elephant done. And this next piece is actually the last of the combined leapers/riders, and the following pieces will be, well, you'll see for yourself. Anyways, the last piece is called the Knight. This name actually consists of two words, Knight and Tripper, and that's because it moves like those two pieces. By the way, Tripper is another leaper that moves 3 squares diagonally, and that all means that the Knight moves to all the squares highlighted on this board. Also, it looks like this to once again symbolize it combining Tripper with the horsey. The rose will be the next piece, and to be honest, it's the best piece so far. It's really advanced mechanically. Just look at that. So at first the rose makes a Knight movement. But it doesn't stop there. It continues and makes a big circle from just the Knight movements, which covers a massive amount of squares, and it does it in every direction as well. The rose is definitely very goofy, just like a Knight, and it's definitely very, very powerful, so I'd be careful of when you guys place it on your board for the game. Nice, we got the rose done, and now it's time for another flower, actually, the tulip. So the tulip moves similarly to a rose as you could have expected. The difference is that tulip makes the circles out of camel's movement, not horses. This is visualization of where it can move on board, and this piece moves way too far out, so we have to stop with those flower pieces thingy. That is also why next piece will be from another category of pieces that make 2 moves in 1 turn. So for example, if a Knight would move twice, it would first go to some square, let's say this one. And then from this square it can move again in all directions, not just in the same direction like a rider. The twice moving Knight is not gonna be in this DLC, but the Griffin will. So let's make it, and looking at it you're probably wondering why the hell it has 4 rooks in the corners, and the answer is in how it moves. So the Griffin moves twice, but these moves are actually done by different pieces. The first move is done by the first, a piece that moves 1 square diagonally, and the second move is actually done by rook, or rather half a rook, as it doesn't move to these squares. This was why there are those rooks in the corner. Alright, having done the Griffin, I guess we can create the next, a little weird piece, the no jumping Knight. This is just a Knight from normal chess, but it can't jump, which is a bit of a nerf, but I guess it can be still useful. Here's exactly how it works. So even though it's named the Knight, it actually still makes 2 moves just like the Griffin, and the first movement is 1 square to the sides, after which it moves diagonally in that same direction to complete the Knight movement. It's also important to note that if one of these squares is blocked, then obviously it can't move here. That's why I say it can't jump. And the wash-up will be our next piece. It's quite similar to the Griffin. The first movement it does is 1 square horizontally and 1 square vertically, just like the leaper wazir. From those squares it then moves like a bishop, and so it covers a ton of squares. Also its name combines 2 words, bishop and wazir, the pieces it moves like. Great, I think we're done with the pieces that make 2 moves in 1 turn. And I actually have something more complicated, pieces that move and capture differently. These pieces are a bit unintuitive and can lead to some weird tactics. Also, this is the second last category of pieces in this DLC. The last one is even weirder. You'll see what I'm talking about later. But now let's go back to the current category of pieces, and create the first one, which moves like a bishop and captures like a Knight. I named it simply Knight Bishop because I have no more ideas for names of pieces that combine Knight and Bishop, but if you guys have any ideas you can throw them in the comments. Now when it comes to its looks, obviously it has both Knight and Bishop on there, but you might notice these blue and red lines over here, and they actually show you which piece it moves like and which it takes like. These lines appear on every one of those 4 pieces, just so you don't get confused. That being said, we're done with the Knight Bishop and we can go on to the Roshop. The Roshop takes diagonally and moves orthogonally. It of course looks like a bishop and a rook, and I'm not gonna talk about it anymore, as it's not the most interesting piece out there. The next piece is called Square Knight, which looks like a horse trapped in a box, and because previous pieces only had classic pieces in them, this one is gonna have some of the new stuff. You could probably tell by the name, but it moves in a square and captures like a horsey. So on these squares it actually both moves and captures on. That being said, we only have 1 piece left in this category, and it's just like the Pope. It is Bishop and Knight Rider in it, except here the Bishop in there can only take, and the Knight Rider can only move. Its name is Knight Rider Bishop, and it looks just like shown here. Alright guys, we have the last 2 pieces to make here. They're from yet another piece category. Pieces that are able to capture other pieces without moving, meaning they stay on the same square while capturing on certain squares. Okay, so, the 27th piece of this video is the Knight without moving. And I know, it's a long and uncreative name, but let's look at the piece itself. So this piece's icon is a horse with some spikes on the back. As you know, it's pretty dangerous. When it comes to its movement though, it moves just like a normal Knight, but it can take without moving on all those squares, just like this. And now we have to do the last piece of this DLC, and this piece is called the Modified Amazon. which is because it's just like the Amazon, except for the fact that the Amazon moves like a bishop, rook and a knight, while the modified Amazon only moves like a rook, only takes diagonally, and takes without moving like a knight. By the way, it's all shown on its icon with the colored lines, and the green line means taking without moving, of course. And we did it, we've done all the pieces in this DLC. Also, as always, you can play this DLC on my website. You can create a custom setup with whichever pieces you want in the position editor, and I also created 3 setups myself. You can check them out over there. Goodbye. Subscribe if you like this video.